There's so many things going on in our country and our city and our state, in your area, you name it. There's so much going on. And today I want to reintroduce you really to a prior guest that I've had. I was very, very impressed with this young man. He is a Latino activist, and he really took the world by surprise, to be honest with you, as he started his political advocacy at a very young age. But I don't want to ruin that story. He's going to reintroduce that story to you. And then we're going to talk about some things that you need to be aware of. We want to stir you up so that you can begin to do your part in really saving America, saving your city, saving your county, saving your state. So let me introduce you to our next guest, Carlos Turcios. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you,
Hey,
Teresa.
it's so good to have you here. Our viewers, I know, have seen you. Many of them have, but it's been a little while. You actually came on my show when it was brand new, and you had an amazing and fascinating story. Give us a little bit of a insight once again about who you are, what you did, and how you got started in advocating for good, healthy political policy. Let's talk about that.
All right, well, I will. So I started politics at the age of 15. And at the age of 15, I was actually introduced to politics when the superintendent, Fort Worth ISD, proposed a plan that was basically kind of productive for my school. But he wanted to, in a simple summary, and parents, students, and teachers, and they basically pushed back, and I helped led that coalition for a couple of months. And it was the first time that I've heard about, the position called school board president, school board member, or the fact that we can actually elect, school board, members, So it was a very interesting experience for me. And for a lot of people, it was something that, of course, woke us up about the political arena, especially when it comes to education. And so for 3 months, we did petitions, we did school board meetings, we did, public comment events, and we did meetings with the superintendent. And ultimately, the superintendent changed his plan, and he ultimately made a plan to help us get a brand new building and keep all our students together. So that's how I got introduced into school board politics and politics in general. And then after that, I got involved on the racial equity stuff. So I was actually appointed to that committee in Fort Worth ISD when I was 15 years old. And in that committee, I learned how horrible, racial politics has actually entered in the classroom. And so, with the help of my former science teacher and some other people, I helped gather, information and data for several years as a member. I actually wanted to leave, at the very beginning, but I realized that if I didn't stay, no one's going to report about what's happening with these committee meetings, summits, emails, all of that. So I stayed, and I wanted to make sure that once I was out, I was transparent with what was going to be released and the information on what they were doing. And so I did that in 2021. I left the committee and I sent all of that information on critical race theory and racial equity policies that they were implementing, video recordings, emails, documents, all of that. And eventually, Fox News did an article, the Daily Mail did an article, and several other news articles were published as a result of this. And with that whole expose, the committee basically went underground. The racial equity department doesn't exist anymore. And sorry. And now the former superintendent, Dr. Kemp B. Scribner, he resigned. And the racial equity director also resigned.
Mhm.
And the fourth most radical school board member, Dr. Jacinto Ramos, also resigned in the year 2022. So we've made a lot of progress ever since, I was 15 years old, and it's actually
Sure.
snowballed into something huge. A lot of
Mhm.
parents, teachers, and students, they've gotten involved. They've awakened to the fact that, school board politics is probably the most important topic everyone should be talking about because it affects the future generation of America, and it's ultimately going to impact America is going to be in the next 20, 30 years from now. If you don't,
Yeah.
the little kids right now, they may be playing toys and they may be playing video games, but
Mhm.
they're going to be your CEOs. They're going to be your people in Congress. They're going to be your doctors. They're
Right.
going to be your attorneys. So it is
Right.
important. that we have bright leaders for the future and leaders that
Mhm.
actually love America, leaders that actually love one another,
That's right.
regardless of color, religion, or any background.
Right. You nailed it. You said it's going to be very important that we have people who actually love America, regardless of your religion. I'm a strong Christian woman. I'm actually a minister, but I agree because I've actually been able to have communication with people of other faiths. Now, obviously, I believe in my faith very strongly, and I would love to have America all love Jesus, right? But at the end of the day, in this season and time, you really do need people who love our country so that they can stand for it. I've seen a lot of people coming from other nations and they don't like what's going on in their schools and what these schools are pushing into their children's lives right now. I think that the left, the woke people, they've been blaming Christianity in a major sense, that we're the reason why. We're they call us all these names and talk about these things, but the truth is that you don't have to be a Christian to care about your nation and to care about your children and not want your children to be brainwashed and just used for their own agendas. It's really sickening, and I'm so thankful that somebody like yourself, so young and get motivated, because you can be an inspiration even to the younger generations, Carlos, because people can hear me, but I'm an older woman, right? As they see, and one day you'll be there too, don't you worry. But for now, you still have a young, polished voice where you can go out and make a difference. And what I've noticed is that you're doing this in different areas, right? So it wasn't just your school board. It wasn't just that you were instrumental in bringing that last a school board member down who was a mess, clearly. But now you're also involved with something called Girls Inc. Is that correct?
Yes, I was involved in that, and that was actually involving the Tarrant County commissioners.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about both and why is this important? Why do my viewers care? What does it make a difference to them? Does it affect them? How is this going to change their area, their territory, their children? Let's hear about that.
So, Girl Sync was another battle that I got involved a couple months ago. Several members from the community, residents and leaders from the community, they got concerned because the Tarrant County, has been funding since the year 2006 a
Mhm.
radical woke organization called Girl Sync, and for
Mm,
anyone of this to know what Girls Inc. is, Girls Inc. is a nonprofit organization that is supposed to be helping young women of color, especially just young women in general. And they're supposed to be giving them, scholarship opportunities, mentorship programs, things like that, empowering them. But in reality, if you go to their Instagram, if you go to their Facebook or Twitter, you'll actually see that they actually promote left-wing policies such as abortion, such as critical race theory, such
yes.
as, free Palestine, or transgenderism, which is probably the worst because many of their posts, they actually want to be gender
Mm.
inclusive and they refuse to say, that women menstruate. It's actually no, people
Oh,
that
goodness.
menstruate.
So silly.
There was going to be a vote. There was a vote this
Mhm.
past October, and so I rallied parents and taxpayers from Tarrant County to go to this commissioners meeting and to do public comment and to funding for this organization for Tarrant County for the next fiscal year. And with enough
Mhm.
pressure, with enough support from the community to boycott this
Mhm.
organization, we eventually got the majority of the votes to actually kill this organization for the end
Wow.
of the year. So Girls Inc. will
Oh,
not be funded.
wow.
For the first time, in
Woohoo.
the fact that Tarrant County is a Republican county, conservative county,
Hmm.
in
Mhm.
fact, it's been funded for 16 years. It's just insane. But with this new county judge, we actually have bold leadership, and he helped, and he was very instrumental in making sure that the votes were there.
Sure. You know what's interesting is, as you're talking about this, it really makes me go, how in the world did this escape for so long? Especially as you just said, it's a conservative, for the a conservative city for the most part, right? For the area, et cetera. However, this points to something very important. I think this is exactly, Carlos, what happened with the schools. I think that we got too comfortable trusting our elected officials, the government, to raise our children, make decisions for our city, for our state, for our county, et cetera. And that's a bunch of nonsense. I mean, at this point, we've got to get really ticked off and raise some hell, really, and say, enough with this. Those are my dollars. Those are my children. You're not going to pervert them. And this is the fight. This is why I like to have you on, because I get very passionate about parents allowing their children. And some of it is plain laziness. Some of it is that they're distracted with their phones. Some of it is that they are tired because they've been at work all day, because they have their own stresses. So I'm not picking on them to that level. I get it. Life is life. Life is hard. But in this season, in America, in your cities, even in your most conservative states, because if you've done your research, you know Texas is what I was reading yesterday. I think yesterday, the day before yesterday, that Texas is called, it's not just the Bible Belt. It's not just considered part of the Bible Belt. They call it the buckle of the Bible Belt. And you're just like, are you kidding? And so we're supposed to be the most conservative area, or one of. How in the world is this happening in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that you have, Republican leaders that are in red states, yet they refuse to promote conservative values. They actually refuse to defend, conservative values. For
Mhm.
me, one of the big experiences that I had to encounter was the fact that when we try getting the local Republican leaders from the city to actually help us combat critical race theory woke ideology in the city of Fort Worth and the schools, we actually didn't get any support from moderate
Wow.
Republicans. The only support we got were from outside from the city.
It's
And one thing that
ridiculous.
I learned is that for a lot of moderate Republicans, they want to be friendly with the left. They don't want to offend the left. And maybe they
Okay.
have some connection, or maybe they're friends with them. And so they
Hmm.
want to be cordial. Oh, we can't do that. It's too
Hmm.
extreme. We don't want to offend them.
Right.
That's the problem with a lot of Republicans, is that they refuse to actually have a backbone. Okay. I have more respect for people on the left than moderate Republicans that have no spine, because at least they're promoting what they believe
Right.
in.
Hmm.
Okay, the
Yeah.
Republicans that we elect, they need to have a backbone, and a lot of
Yep.
them they don't, and that's the reason
Hmm.
why schools have been infected with woke ideology. Corporate America has been infected with woke ideology.
Right.
Abortion rampant across the country, because we have had for a long time weak Republican leadership in a lot of states.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
Democrats, what they do when they win an election, whether it be at the county level, municipal level, or state level, what do? They enforce every single idea they want. They have
Whew.
no shame of what they believe in. And unfortunately, we need a lot of change within the
Yes.
conservative movement, because we need
Yeah.
bold leadership. We need conservatives that are out there doing the job and pushing in what they actually believe in.
Right. Excuse me. I'm so glad you're saying this, because that's one of the things I've been trying to bring attention to with a lot of my viewers, is that there are way too many comfortable conservative Republican leaders rubbing elbows with the Democrats, the left wing, people. And look, you can be cordial with them. I'm not saying let's be enemies in person, but when it comes to policy, our policies need to completely be against one another. If we are really the conservative America, we're really trying to push this, then that's really what should be happening. There's no reason why we should be, succumbing to this nonsense. And you're not the only one I mean, this is like across the board where a lot of conservative leaders are doing this. And if there are any conservative leaders who call themselves conservative leaders watching this show right now, we call you out and we say, stop the nonsense. Stop the madness. We need you to represent the people. Listen to what the people are
Yeah.
saying. You can tell, let me bring this even just like nationwide politics. I mean, look at President Trump. People, the media acts like everybody hates Trump, but let me tell you, most people are waiting for President Trump to come into office. Why? Because
Yep.
he is not busy trying to succumb to all these people who just want to be liked, and they want to get into the next election as well. The money coming in, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of it's about money. I heard a senator call out. He was in a committee meeting, and he called it out right there in front of everybody and said, most of the people in here are being bought out right now. And it made me so mad, yet so glad to hear an elected official finally rise up and say, you're all hypocrites. And he didn't say it was a party divided thing. It was like all of you,
Yep.
conservative and Democrats, you are all being bought out. So it's time for people like yourself, to continue to speak out against this, talk to these people. But do you really believe there's going to be a change, Carlos? I mean, tell me, what do you see? What are the footprints out there right now? What are you seeing?
Well, I do think that there's actually change. I do think that change is coming. For example, here in Tarrant County, we used to have a county judge for 16 years, Glenn Whitley, who was very moderate. He was very liked by Democrats, but a lot of Republican
Mhm.
voters actually support or like Mr. Whitley because he was too soft. And we saw his moderate Republican politics play when COVID happened because he shut down business, he shut down bars, he
Mm,
enforced in policies here in Tarrant County, and it was very destructive
mhm.
for a lot of people's livelihoods.
Sure.
And so, a true Republican wouldn't have supported lockdowns all the way until 2021. So
Yes.
eventually, as a result of that, a lot of people got very upset. Tim O'Hare decided to run, for the Republican nomination 2022. Mr. Whitley didn't run again for reelection, and Mr. O'Hare
Mhm.
won in 2022, and he defeated Betsy Price in 2022 as a more moderate Republican. And ever since he's been the county judge, first day of January of this year, he's done a lot in just 10 months. And so,
Wonderful.
getting slow but steady changes, even here at the
Mhm.
local level. The Republican Party is in a metamorphosis in the sense that we're
Mhm.
now reaching the old Republicans, and we're embracing more the one where you're not
Yeah.
afraid anymore. You're not bold to actually push conservative policies, America
Yeah.
First policy, and we're seeing it at this level as well, nationwide as well. Trump, Ken Paxton, Ted Cruz. Those are examples of how the party's
Mhm.
changing. Because 10 years ago, there have been what Mitt Romney types or Bush types, and a lot of Republicans are waking up too. A lot of Republicans
Yes.
voted for Mitt Romney, and
Yep.
today, regret
Mhm.
voting. If they when they look back voting for them, realize, man,
Yeah.
they actually were America last. They actually were not good for the country. So I think the
Right.
party's changing, and it's
Good.
heading towards the right. And of course, there's going to be back and forth between the moderates because they want to
Right.
power. But I think we'll win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think you're right on it. I've seen a lot of division and reports of division within the party. You see the liberal media; they love it. They're like, "Oh, there's division between the." But you know what? I really think that there needs to be a division. We need to be able to comb through those who are very moderate, almost Democrat-like, instead of just pretending that they belong to us. That way, we can call them out,
Yeah,
bring attention to the public who actually really are interested in keeping those very strong traditional American values. And let's go ahead and just say, you know what? You're you're a traitor. I mean, I saw a report on Mitt Romney, I think it was yesterday. I mean, he publicly said, I'm sticking with the Democrats if things don't go the way I want them to do. What? Really? Well, thank you for letting us know. Thank you for letting America know where you stand. Not that we had any doubts, right? Because the reports have been going on about him for a while, but I was just like, look at him, just straight confessing his sin right there. So I just thought that was exciting. I thought that was really good. So I'm all for the division of things. What I'm not for though is, we don't have to be so ugly, Carlos. I do see a lot of ugliness going on, and whatever. Look, I can agree to disagree with you passionately. I'll vote against you. I'll speak out even in policy against you, but it doesn't have to become so personal, right? Am I going to fight for things? Yes. Am I going to stand for things? Yes. At the end of the day, if you had a flat tire, guess what? I'm going to pull over and help you. It doesn't matter. So that's where I stand. But we do need to make sure that we don't begin to act as conservatives like a lot of the, excuse me, the left wing people, because there is this rage and anger that comes over you over these people because politics becomes their identity. And then that's the representation of. We don't need that. Have you seen a lot of that going on? What are you seeing with that?
Unfortunately, I have, and of course, see that nationwide. Nationwide. And so, one of the advices that I give is, go to church. Actually, go do something in your life. Don't just use politics and that's it. A lot of
Mm,
people, their
good.
becomes politics, and they tend
Yes.
to neglect their life. They tend to neglect their family. They tend to neglect even their free time, because they're always consumed with politics. But at the end of the day, I have relatives that are progressive, that are not
Hmm.
conservative. And at the end of the day, I'm still going to love them. We're still going to eat dinner.
Yes.
We're gonna hang out. Because at the end of the
Amen.
day, at the end of the day, they are in the image of God, and we need
Right.
to actually be number one Christians, not Republicans first. Unfortunately, there are some that want to put
Amen. Yes.
politics. No, 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 no. You need to be a Christian first, and if you do that and follow that model, I think you'll have a pretty healthy lifestyle. If you don't, you're going to have a very destructive lifestyle, and you want to be consumed with rage because Twitter's the world, Facebook's the world. No, go to the
Yep.
park, go actually walk, go actually go to a restaurant, make it, enjoy life,
Hmm.
build a family,
Yes.
So
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I've heard people, I mean, they see it almost, sometimes people see it as a weakness, and I'm going to stick with who I am. I say Jesus first, Christ first, my faith first. And yes, I will still be a strong voice, but at the end of the day, we're all going to go to sleep. We're all going
yeah.
to have needs from each other, et cetera, et cetera. What are you doing right now, specifically in this area of activism, and how's that going? What do you foresee coming up for you?
So right now, I'm the national advocacy director for the Latinos United for Conservative Action, or also known as
Mm,
LUCA. And right now, I'm organizing a protest against one of the churches here in Fort Worth because the church called Galileo Church isn't really a church. What they
mm.
did a couple months ago is that they created a nonprofit organization to bus minors out of state to get gender reassignment surgeries and then bring them.
Wow.
And so they're using a loophole in the SB 14
Oof.
law, which outlaws gender reassignment surgeries below the age of 18. What it doesn't do is outlaw anyone going, to another state and then
Mm,
coming back if they're a minor. So right now we're, in coordination and working very hard to try and get some lawmakers to actually fix this loophole because all it takes is a billionaire, a left-wing billionaire, maybe like George Soros, to come to
mhm,
Texas, nonprofit, and say, hey, if your kid says they're, if your boy says they're a girl, then yeah, they need to get the surgery. He will pay for the trip. It has to be outlawed. If you're a Texas resident, you cannot send your
mm,
kid to New York, California to get surgery. If you're a Texas
mhm.
resident, it needs to be illegal, even if you're in New York, because you're still a
That's right.
Texas resident. So we're working very to get that
Mhm.
loophole fixed. And so that's where we're protesting the church. We actually do have one of the lawmakers that have contacted
Good.
us that he is interested in
Woo,
helping
praise
out.
God.
So that's the plan is protesting the Galileo Church, and it's very disgusting what they're
Absolutely.
doing.
Tell me again, what's the name of the church?
Galileo Church
Okay.
in Fort
All right.
Worth.
Interesting. In Fort Worth. Okay. That's very, very disturbing, but not surprising. And this is one of the things the viewers need to know. I speak to you as not just a TV host, but a minister. Just because somebody says they are a church and they can put a cross on it, whatever. It does not mean they belong to Jesus. Amen. We've got to hear that out, friends. You've got to hear this, okay? Anything that is ungodly and unbiblical, the Lord does not support. So we can put a sign on it, a cross on it. We can do anything. We can do a Christmas parade. It doesn't matter if it's not in line with God's word, it's not a church. So there are a lot of twisted churches right now. I'm so glad you brought this up, Carlos, because there's a lot of twisted churches right now saying things that are so unbiblical. And here's the problem that most people don't know the Bible for themselves. So they just give the credit to the person speaking, saying, well, I'm this and I'm that, and I belong to this church. And they just assume it's true. And it really causes a lot of confusion from people thinking, oh, well, this is okay. This is no, it's not. I'm sorry. For those of you watching, no, it's not. If you really read your Bible, regardless of who says it, how they write it, whatever, read your Bible for yourself so that you can see those things are not a true representation of the body of Christ and who Jesus is, etc. So please, I'm sorry for those of you who've been so misled to a place of, dark deception. That's not okay. It's not what's supposed to be. And Carlos, what you're doing is phenomenal. Tell me just real quickly, how do you organize these protests? What does that look like for an activist?
Well, number one, you want to make sure that you get a permit. You always want to have paperwork. If
Mm,
you're organizing a protest, rally, or a march, you want to make sure that you have paperwork so that way you have backing just in case, you know, the police gets involved or something goes bad or, something just happens. You always want to have some documentation so you have some sort of support. So that's number one.
mhm,
Is the one rule is get permits, get any documentation wherever you live. And then, of course, number two is just making sure you blast that online. Create a Eventbrite or create
mm,
a link so people can RSVP. I typically just use Facebook because I have a lot of groups, and so I can just share that
mm,
very quick. But of course, utilize any group app or any site that helps coordinate and get people to RSVP. So that's another thing. And then, of course,
mm,
make that you bring signs, make sure that you actually put
mm,
timestamp of when you're gonna get there, location, and of course, try and sharing that every single day with anyone that
mhm,
your friends, any group that you're in,
mm,
and of course, keep engaging and making sure that they actually know what's going on. So that's how I
okay.
typically, you know,
Oh,
have the
not sure what
message.
happened. Hang on a second. He I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. You're upside down here, but you know what? We're getting ready to close this, but let
Yeah.
me just say this. Do they have, and it's okay, our viewers, they can handle this. I need to ask you this question. When you do a protest, do the police officers or some kind of protection for the protesters?
Yes, so that's why the permit is important
Okay.
because when you do the permit, when you have the permit, you alert the local PD that there's going to be a protest here. There's the time, this is what's going to happen, X, Y, and Z, and both parties or any group, you know, they're
Mhm.
not. There's no fighting. There's no violence. So you need to make sure that the local police knows of what's happening because if you're alone and then Antifa shows up and there's no police presence,
Mhm.
it might not be a very good situation for you. So it's imperative that you alert the police.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the police will do their job, and they'll make sure that everyone has their right to do freedom of speech. But of course, everyone is safe
Good.
and that there's no violence.
Good. This has been so wonderful, Carlos. I know you're having just some minor technical difficulties, but you know what? This has been so worth our time. Thank you so much. How can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram. My Twitter is Carlos Turcios. So you can just type that on Twitter,
Mhm.
Turcios. Facebook is the same thing, and then of course Instagram is also the same thing. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. So there you have it, my friends. If you are in the Fort Worth area, please find this young man. He is making a change and a difference in his area. He is empowering people, and you want to be a part of that. Carlos, you've been a blessing today. We're going to bring you back again because you've always got some great stories, and you're being an inspiration for many. So thank you so much for coming on.
thank you.